interrupt this program with a weather advisory.
I was only 9 years old, but I remember hearing the sirens and listening to the warnings on CCO radio.
This is a dangerous storm with large hail. Stay indoors, away from windows.
We lived in Elk River, about 10 miles from the tornadoes. I recall my dad's fear, his eyes on the skies, ready to rush us to the basement.
Well, everybody says it sounds like a freight train. The noise was just deafening when it first came through.
That night, Robert Christensen had all he could handle.
At that point, I was really worried about whether I was going to survive.
Thousands of Minnesotans were just as scared. 7 different tornadoes touched down that night.
And when I looked up, it was a perfect funnel. It was just beautiful in the sky.
The first one was a great black mass of coiled clouds heading towards the northern suburbs.
The sky got very dark and green, very green.
You can actually feel the basement rattle and roar in this exhibit at the History Center, and you feel a sense of awe. The tornado was an F4, and that's rare for Minnesota. 10 seconds. Count it yourself. It's no time at all. It's not very long. In fact, a little more than a blink or two of an eye. Yet, it's an eternity. 10 seconds is all it took to rip the roof off Fridley Junior High, where hundreds of kids gathered for an arts and crafts fair.
Well, there was no place to run because everywhere you took a footstep, another piece of concrete fell right in front of you.
10 seconds is all it took to flatten this neighborhood in Moundsview, Lois and Knoll Drives, Ground Zero, right smack dab in the middle, where Charles and Laverl Wilkins lived.
I just can remember just seeing nothing across the street. I just couldn't believe everything was gone.
The debris was all in the center lane.
Charles wandered around his old neighborhood. He checked out the house where he and his 15-year-old son, Ken, saved a pregnant woman.
To get across there, I don't know how we ever did it, to be honest.
That woman was trapped beneath the rubble with 2 broken legs, still holding her 14-month-old toddler.
I think that's the mother's instinct. That's what I think. You know, she just wound determined to keep that baby with her.
This is the price Minnesota paid that night. 16 dead, 700 injured, 325 houses, and 241 farms destroyed.
One man was carrying a child with the arm almost ripped off and wondering where he could get medical help, and other people were bleeding.
I was in a trailer in Fridley Terrace.
Everyday people were heroes.
And I grabbed my 2 little girls and tried to stay on the floor. And then the refrigerator came over on top of us.
I think that's mine, the 63 4-door Chevy.
At Ricky's Embers restaurant in Fridley, there is a booth that's like a shrine dedicated to the great tornado.
This is the house before the tornado. My wife and 7 kids were in the home at the time.
He remembers that night well. His house ripped apart, and he began to drink heavily because of the storm, a binge that would last for years.
From May 6, 1965 to December 30th, 1969, I was sober 3 days.
Though the storm claimed countless victims, Minnesotans worked hard to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. I remembered Vice President Humphrey and his wife Muriel reassuring us everything would be okay.
But it's such a tremendous sight to see our people with the courage they have.
That we, as a family, received from my fellow workers, church, everybody around me, was probably one of the greatest things that I really remember out of this.
Looking up at the calm, beautiful blue sky, it's hard to believe anything so dangerous could come from it. But it did, and we'll never forget.
This was Fridley 25 years ago, covered with piles of rubble where houses once stood. It was a hot Thursday evening when this mammoth tornado plowed through the city, followed by 2 others. Patrick Priest was huddled with classmates in school when the tornado ripped the roof off.
Well, there was a lot of screaming, and everybody was running, and there was no place to run because everywhere you took a footstep, another piece of concrete fell right in front of you.
These images of destruction are starting to fade, but for Kurt and Shirley Cornier, the memories are fresh. They lay flat on the floor of a beauty shop as the first tornado roared through. Eventually, they headed for home, but their neighborhood was so flattened.
We didn't know it was our street. We had to find, well, Kurt saw the street sign on the ground, and then we realized this was Melody Drive. And they had loudspeakers and things, people looking for their children. Husbands were just coming home from work looking for their wives.
This is what was left of the Cornier's house. Some of the walls were standing, the roof was gone, and inside it looked like a messy lumber yard. This was the view of their neighborhood from their backyard. It took the Corniers more than 6 months to rebuild because of a shortage of builders, but they now see this whole ordeal from a distance.
Well, it was a big bump in life at that time, but I guess it's no worse than some other things you could go through.
No.
Today, Fridley is green, its houses neat and new. The seeds of this rebirth could be seen 25 years ago when a man walked past his blasted house with a shovel full of dirt for a young new tree. Jeff Kelly, WCCO Television News, Fridley.
Experience CBS News.
When have you seen a tornado do this in Minnesota? More than 2,000 homes and businesses damaged or destroyed in St. Peter alone. Other towns are devastated as well. But college students escaped destruction of their dorms at Gustavus Adolphus, and other people survived being buried alive. We have live team coverage of the Spring Twisters. A special 1-hour WCCO4 News starts right now.
Proud to serve the heart of the Midwest. This is the hometown team, WCCO4 News.
Hello, I'm Amelia Santinella. We'll join Don Shelby in St. Peter in just a moment. The day after the storm, and what an incredible story the pictures are showing us of death and destruction. Here's the latest. A 6-year-old boy is dead after a twister lifts the van he was in and rips it right off the road. At least 38 people are injured. 3 of them are in critical condition this evening. More than 500 homes in St. Peter are destroyed. More than 2,200 homes in St. Peter are damaged. 90% of the homes and businesses in Comfrey are damaged or destroyed. American Red Cross shelters housed 400 people overnight. And a Minnesota Senate committee has already approved up to $10 million in tornado relief money. We have a team of reporters covering the Spring Twisters, beginning with our own Don Shelby, who is live in St. Peter. Don?
Amelia, it is really something to see, and even more amazing is that there was only one death in all of this. When you see the number of homes destroyed here, the number of businesses destroyed here, and how badly they were hit, it is amazing to believe that not everyone would have been killed in this storm that left a path 3/4 to a mile wide right through the west bank of the Minnesota River right here in St. Peter. We're standing here at what used to be the public school. It was turned into a community center not long ago. The wall was standing right here, was a 4-course brick wall. It has been blown in onto the gymnasium floor. On the other side of that, where the wall collapsed, a man was buried alive. We'll tell you his story just a little bit later in the newscast. Now, here's the timeline according to the National Weather Service for how those storms hit. Tornadoes touched down in Comfrey at 4:40 in the evening. By 5:50, they had already gotten into St. Peter. Then they went on by 6 o'clock to Lee Center. They kept right on going, twisting on through Lonsdale at about 6:20. Now, we already gave you the numbers, but the pictures bring home the most impact. Captain Dale Dobish in the Live Eye in the Sky helicopter recorded what is left of a lot of these St. Peter neighborhoods. He also flew over what is left of a rural feedlot operation, a damaged farmhouse surrounded by the foundations of farm buildings, and lumber that seems to be nothing but matchsticks. We have even more incredible pictures to show you, because wherever you point your camera in St. Peter or Comfrey, you're going to end up with an incredible picture. We want to continue now our team coverage with Mike Walsher standing by in St. Peter. Mike.
Well, that's right, Don. You know, the devastation here is so complete. This is not unusual. This was Gary Lacey's main floor to his house. It is now tipped up against his neighbors. I'm standing on his stairs to his basement, which were blown out of the basement, out of the house, and then dumped in his neighbor's front yard. You know, many of us believe that St. Peter was really one of the prettiest towns along the Minnesota River, with its old homes, its beautiful stately trees, and its old churches. And all of them, sadly enough, took the brunt of this tornado's wrath. The tornado damaged or destroyed hundreds of older homes in St. Peter, homes like the one Cindy Scramstad and her husband spent the last 2 years remodeling.
Yesterday we were sitting outside deciding how we were going to finish it off before the storm hit. But
I'm going to tear it down.
Yeah. Start all over.
On the southwest edge of St. Peter, these townhomes, many only 1 or 2 years old, were destroyed. Some wiped right off their foundations. Numbed residents picked through the rubble, hoping to salvage some valuables.
We've collected a lot of antiques through the years, and we've saved quite a few, but we've lost probably half. It's 40 years of collecting.
Governor Arnie Carlson stopped here late Monday afternoon to talk with storm victims. Elsewhere in St. Peter, the beautiful old churches sustained heavy damage. The Catholic Church probably will have to be demolished. The business district seemed to have some damage, but not nearly as bad as the residential neighborhoods. Well, you know, throughout St. Peter, people are just numb by this devastation. We've seen these kinds of scenes, folks looking through their garages, their homes, trying to pick up some personal belongings, some personal mementos, trying to get a little piece, salvage a little piece of their lives. Here's a trailer they pulled up to this house, and they picked out some old mud-splattered books, a variety of sewing machines, some Christmas decorations, anything people can find to remind themselves of some sense of normalcy and to grab on to what they can of their lives as their homes, many of the homes here, are destroyed. Don?
Right, Mike. As we've reported before, the Governor Carlson, of course, cut short his visit to Washington, D.C. to come back to this part of the heartland of Minnesota to survey the damage for himself. He did. He toured the area with many of the townspeople, with a lot of the leaders from this part of the state, in order to come up with what is considered a declaration for an emergency, which will be sent forward then to the Congress of the United States to be signed by the President of the United States, which would kick in all the federal emergency management agencies' activities to bring in trailers for people who have been displaced and to loosen up some of the money in the federal government to try to help begin the repair here. A bit later we're going to tell you more about what the state lawmakers have already decided to do in order to help the people here in St. Peter. As we said earlier, there has been one death that we can report from this tornado. A young boy, making it even more sad. A 6-year-old child by the name of Dustin Schneider was killed when the van in which he was riding near St. Peter was blown off the road by the winds and went into a muddy area, and then because of some sort of vacuum pressure caused by the differential in pressure, the child was sucked out of the van and thrown something like 150 yards into that field, and he was killed. Now, there was another person near death at the time that all of this was happening. An amazing story of survival that we found when we got here. Producer John Wolf found a fellow by the name of Ricky Ham, who has to be tonight the luckiest man in St. Peter.
Buried, I think it was 12 or 15 feet of rubble.
Perhaps it was irony that Ricky Ham was walking to the hospital with a stomachache when Sunday's tornado ripped through St. Peter. He looked up just in time to see a wall of bricks and lumber falling toward him.
Couldn't see nothing. I just had one hit in my back of my head and knocked me right out and just put myself on the ground. I just covered up my face and there it was. All the stuff just kept on pouring on me. Couldn't get none of it off, couldn't do nothing. I was pinned to the ground.
Unable to move, Ricky could only holler and pray for help.
Well, when I was screaming for 3 hours, one of the paramedics or somebody from town there heard me and started coming over and said, "You need help down there?" I said, "Yeah, I'm buried." They started undigging me.
He had a bruised shoulder, twisted knee, and a little bit of bruising on his ribs, but that was all. He is the luckiest person in St. Peter this evening. Several towns around St. Peter are cleaning up tonight. One of them is the town of Comfrey, and that cleanup process is going to be an extremely long process because that town has been devastated. And that is where Deborah Sherman is standing by live with more. Deborah?
Don, the National Weather Service has just told us that on a scale of 5, 0 to 5, Comfrey ranks third for damage. And here's the evidence of some of that. the tree right here uprooted. It's been here for many years. Look at this home behind me. It has shattered windows and the foundation is very bad. And this is actually one of the better homes. Many of the other homes are simply gone. And over here you can see sheet metal has just wrapped itself around things. And over there, more destruction everywhere. We've also learned that people here only had 45 seconds, a 45-second warning to find out that a tornado 1 mile wide was coming their way.
Getting out here today and looking at the mess, it's unbelievable.
And the things that mean so much to us are gone.
One by one, people are returning to their homes in Comfrey.
These windows broke open and everything went flying. It's a mess. I'm hoping that when the insurance guy comes that he will say it's a total loss, because it really is.
Gina Anderson grew up here.
Where do we begin over? And it was just a mess. And my father died 2 years ago, and I know if he was here, he'd be able to pick the pieces up, and I don't know if we ever will.
It is that bad all over town. The tornado wiped out 75% of Comfrey, damaged a century-old church, a school, a grain yard, businesses. Forget downtown. And in the neighborhoods, the tornado crushed 3 out of 4 homes.
There's really no way to describe how the tornado cut through the town, but it left some places standing and virtually destroyed the rest.
Volunteers are cleaning up, but whether this town of 500 lives or dies from the destruction will depend on the determination of its people. And they will need a lot of determination to clean up this place, because it is simply a mess. The National Guard has been escorting people into their homes like this one today just for an hour to let them get some emergency items. Tomorrow they hope to be letting them in for a little bit longer to get some bigger items, but no word on when this town will get back on its feet. Don.
All right, Deborah, thank you very much. Well, in St. Peter, of course, one of the most beautiful sights of this very, very beautiful town is the site of the campus of Gustavus Adolphus, probably one of the most photographed campuses in all of the college systems throughout the state of Minnesota. But it has been terribly, terribly harmed, and Kathy Wurzer has been on that story all day. Kathy, I was down there earlier and took a look at that historic shot as you look up to the oldest building on campus with all of the beautiful trees, and it's just devastation.
It absolutely is, Don. As you mentioned, Old Main is what you're referring to, along with Christ Chapel, and the devastation is hard to understand unless you see it yourself. Now, right behind us here on the hill is one of the big dorms on campus here at Gustavus Adolphus. Now, that dorm sustained some heavy damage along with most of the other buildings on campus. The tornado swept down over the hill. Right behind us here, you see some other large trees that were damaged and swept out this way. The twister did, causing enormous amounts of damage, as we've already documented here for you. Now, 2,300 students go to Gustavus Adolphus College. They were all on spring break, so no injuries, thankfully. But driving through the now quiet campus, you really are struck by the enormity of the damage, and not one building isn't touched. And the damage may run deeper than just mere shards of glass. Some people say that the storm struck at the very heart of the school. Every morning at 10 o'clock, students, faculty, and staff come to worship at Christ Chapel, a landmark on campus. Now they're clearing up soggy hymnals and sweeping up shards of glass. The once picturesque campus is in ruins. The Gusties football team's home, Hollingsworth Field, is ripped up. Most of the trees on campus uprooted. Dormitories and other school buildings sustained heavy damage, windows blown out due to the powerful winds.
I live the second floor up here. It's probably towards the middle, but
Jason Raby is a sophomore from nearby Winthrop who came back from spring break to see what happened to his campus and his dorm.
I brought up like my stereo, like carpet, furniture. I left everything up here, so I hope I can get some of it back, or I don't know how they're going to replace that, you know. Some things you just can't replace, like pictures, and I have a lot of stuff up there, and I don't really care to lose it.
We also had a chance to talk to 2 graduate students who were walking the campus. They had graduated in 1995, and they said they were just devastated by what they see of their campus now. A lot of students come to Gustavus because it is so beautiful, and now there's really not a whole lot left. Now, we talked to the school president, and he says they might bring back students in about 2 weeks, but they're still assessing damage here on the campus. Don?
All right, Kathy. Now, that is according to your report, and then what Mike said earlier on, that this town is known for its beautiful churches, its stately, historic homes, and certainly certainly for the 100 and 200 and sometimes 300-year-old cedar trees that are all along here in St. Peter. And sad to report to you that the next time you drive through St. Peter on your way to Mankato or from Mankato back to the Twin Cities, it's going to look like a completely different town, and that is sad to say. It is time to go back to the studio now, Amelia, but we're going to have a lot more to report here during the next 45 minutes of our broadcast.
Okay, Don, we'll see you then. To really get a feel for just how extensive the damage is in southern Minnesota, let's go up to Captain Dale Dobish, who's in our live Eye in the Sky helicopter. What have you seen today, Captain?
Amelia, we're out west of St. Peter, probably about 3 miles west of St. Peter. And one farm we're going to show you, this is a fairly, unfortunately, tragically typical farmstead between here and Comfrey. But one thing, if you notice, the debris is on the bottom side of your screen, which is actually the west side. All the other debris we've spotted today, or most of the other debris that we've spotted, has been out on the east side. So this does indicate that obviously there was a funnel cloud, and this happened to be on the one side of the wind, so it blew the debris from the farm out the other side. So obviously a tornado damage. We're going to follow down the road here. You can see one reason they don't want people out in this area is there's just hundreds of power people out here working, trying to get the lines restored, electricity back in. And you can see here the devastation just along the edge of the road, the more farms, more homes and so forth, everything just very tore up. And this is the area that Mike Walcher was in with the townhomes that are all destroyed. Now earlier today I was with Chris Ottson and Dick Nordling, and we were out in the Lonsdale and Lee Center area.
The tornado cut a path of destruction nearly 1 mile wide in St. Peter. Hardly a single home has been left untouched. Farms are blown apart with hardly any recognizable structures left. Century-old homes are in ruins. KRBI's radio tower is down, and at Gustavus Adolphus College, the church spire is in crumpled ruins. The tornado then raced toward Le Center. One target, a trailer park. Family homes are now twisted wreckage.
Glass everywhere inside. Inside, the living room was the worst, right in here, because there's glass, everything off the walls, my stuff is all over.
The tornado cut a path nearly a half a mile wide here, throwing semi-trailers into fields. Finally, the tornado settled on Lonsdale, destroying more than 10 buildings.
We were able to see the satellite dish in the backyard come up out of the ground, and then the neighbor's tree went down, and then the garage was gone, and we came flying out of the house to make sure them guys were all okay. In a matter of 3 minutes, it was gone.
Chris Ottson, WCCO 4 News.
And we're still looking at some more damage here. This is just incredible, the amount of damage. It runs from here to Comfrey. So, Amelia, we'll have more on this, and back to you in the studio.
Okay, thank you very much, Captain. Do you know what to do if you hear a tornado warning? Coming up next, important information everyone should know if bad weather strikes when you're home or on the road. Also ahead, what happened when the spring twisters plow through some Minnesota farms? And if you'd like to share a home video of the twisters, give us a call at 612-333-WCCO and then press 1. We'll return with more in our hour-long special on the twisters in just a moment.
Minneapolis.
I love it.
Tomorrow, though, a sweltering Twin Cities.
At Lake Calhoun, it's the best way to beat the heat.
The heat index soared to 118, but hot didn't spell happiness for Shelly Schirkenbach.
I don't like the winter, I don't like the summers now.
Shelly's hard to please. We first met her following the biggest one-day snowfall in February in the Twin Cities. She was shoveling and mighty miserable.
I am so tired of the snow.
Snow fell for a day and a half. The high hit 24 degrees, and whiteout conditions were seen across Minnesota.
Why do we live here?
Same story this summer.
I am thinking the same thing today. I just asked my kids today, said, why are we living here? Isn't there just a middle ground somewhere?
It seems Shelley just loves to shovel.
I can't believe you're shoveling again.
I can't either.
She's working on a landscaping project in the back now. She can't drop the shovel no matter the season.
Now I'm going to move, because then you won't find me.
Far from the misery she feels her Minnesota weather.
High around 100. It's kind of muggy.
Some find humidity and happiness, or humidity and horror.
The heat index of, 112, 114. It's, whatever it is, it's downright awful.
Water rushing from the Kingsbury Creek got so high overnight, it poured into Lake Superior Zoo's exhibits. The water was so high, Berlin, the 450-pound polar bear, swam out, and the seals were swept out of their enclosure and out of the zoo. Feisty was found on Grand Avenue, and Vivian not far from there.
To see a seal in Duluth, out, you don't expect to see a seal out in Duluth. I was expecting to see lots of water and waves and destruction, and not a seal.
Animal handlers worked with police to quickly capture the polar bear, but they couldn't save the barn animals. A popular donkey named Ashley died, along with goats and sheep. Darla, the zoo's mini horse, was the only animal in the barn to make it.
It's a bright moment in a really, really dark day, and we thought that we had lost everyone, and there she was just waiting for us.
Her handler, Lizzie Johnson, thinks Darla swam a few hundred yards to get to safety.
She just is one of the feistiest animals we have here, and she just pulled through.
The loss of the other animals is hitting the crew at the zoo hard, and the place is a soppy, muddy mess. Zookeepers and handlers say they never saw this coming.
It's devastating. I've been a member of this community my entire life. I've worked here for just under a year, and it's incredibly devastating to see it like this.